A very warm welcome to today's video. Today I will be predicting the 2026 Paper 1 AQA A-Level Philosophy exams. Now, before we get into it, I'll remind you that I have no inside information. I do not work for AQA. All that I'm doing is I'm looking at the data, and the data is freely accessible to you in these videos. It's just what has come up in the last few years. This data, the table here, is such that you can look at this, you can make your own decisions, your own judgments, and form your own conclusions about what you think is going to come up. Everyone else, all the other people doing these kind of videos, including myself, are just guessing. Based on these, you can, as I said, make your own guesses as well. But for what it's worth, this video will share my own predictions. I got the essays 50% right last year, so I guessed 2 right and got 2 wrong. The year before that, I got 3 right and 1 wrong. Maybe this year I'll do even worse. Maybe this year I'll do better, and I'll get back to my my luck this year. Let's see. I have a free course on the technique in the description, which you can click on. You can duplicate that. And you can use it completely for free if you're not happy with the grades that you're currently getting. If I were you, it's free, you lose nothing. I would definitely have a look at that. See if there's any value to be had from it. I'm not looking for your email, there's no upsell, it's nothing. It's just completely free for you, so consider checking that out. With that being said, let's get on with these predictions. So, like I've said in previous years, the AO1 questions I'm much less confident with. I've got some of them right in the past. I've got most of them wrong in the past. But when I predict the smaller mark questions, I'd at least bear in mind, what I'm doing is I'm looking at, what kind of content has come up in the last few years. If it has, then it's less likely to come up this year. Things that haven't come up at all, I'd go in making sure I really understand. So as we get later on in these videos, you'll see units, and in this case for epistemology, like missing shade of blue, that's never come up. Go into the exam being really confident on missing shade of blue, because it might come up for 12, as I predicted, it could come up for 5 or 3, but if things at this point in the exam cycle, now that virtually everything has come up, for the few things that haven't, be really confident with them. Go in assuming that those things are going to come up, because if they haven't come up yet, it's pretty likely. It's not certain, but it is much more likely. For the 3 mark questions, we are getting lots of, at the moment, explaining basic terms, analytic and synthetic, necessary and sufficient, necessary and contingent, a priori, a posteriori. I'm going to assume we're going to get similar kinds of questions this year. I'd certainly practice all of those questions. This is also a great revision resource, because you can just see everything that the exam board has been asking. I think define empiricism could come up. It might be define innatism or something like this, but a definition style question as opposed to a really particular theory, I think is likely enough. Infallibilism has not come up recently, or maybe even at all, actually. So infallibilism could come up. Again, that could be for 12, it could be for 5, but since it hasn't come up, be confident going into the exam with infallibilism. The exam board have been on a streak. They've been on a roll with asking similarities and differences questions. Go into the exam having practiced lots of similarities and differences questions. Even if this is the night before for you, just write a few of those kind of questions. They've loved doing it recently, so practice the similarities and differences between 2 theories, or maybe just the differences. Missing shade of blue, as I said, could come up for 12. It hasn't come up before. That's pretty likely. Now for the essay, I think that most likely innate ideas will come up. The last time that came up was 2019, so it certainly could have come up this year. Direct realism also hasn't come up in a long time now. But last year we got a perception-based question in indirect realism. And so 2 years in a row with a perception question, I don't think is very likely. It was done in 2020, 2021, so take that prediction with a pinch of salt. But if they've already done 2 years in a row with perception questions, are they going to do another 2 years in a row with perception questions? I don't find that likely. You form your own conclusion. If I was going in, I would have in mind innate ideas. I think that's most likely to come up this year. For section 2, for ethics, what do I think is going to come up? Well, like I said with the epistemology section, for the 3-mark questions, questions like cognitivism and non-cognitivism, naturalism and non-naturalism, voluntary acts and involuntary acts, these kind of questions are quite likely, or they're certain they definitely came up in the last few years. I would go in practicing lots of those kind of questions, so defining what various terms mean. So consequentialism, something like define what is meant by the term consequentialism for 3 marks. I think that certainly could come up. Now, Kantian deontology, if we look at the 5-mark questions, hasn't come up very much recently. It came up last in 2022. For such a key theory, that hasn't come up very much. Kantian deontology might come up for your 5-mark question. Deontology also hasn't come up very much for your 25-mark questions. And so I've actually predicted it for my essay, sorry to spoil that so soon. But this kind of thing, you look at this table, you see that Kantian deontology hasn't come up for 25s, it hasn't really come up very much for 5s either. Yes, okay, it's been pretty heavy for the 12s. But I would go into the exam making sure I was really confident with deontology. Anti-realism, something like emotivism, hasn't come up very much. So emotivism would be my prediction for a 5-mark question as well. Virtue ethics, we haven't seen for 12 marks very long, very much recently. So it could come up for 12 marks this year. As I've said, I think deontology is probably the most likely 25-mark question that could come up. Applied ethics has never come up, so it could come up this year. Now, if I'm completely honest, every year that applied ethics doesn't come up, I grow more sceptical that it will ever come up. It might not be the type of thing that AQA ever do an essay question on. Unfortunately here I don't work for AQA, so I have no idea. I'd still go in being prepared on how to write applied ethics essay questions. It's not something that students prep very much, so planning and practicing a few applied ethics essays would definitely make me feel more comfortable if I was doing it this year. You make your own judgments. Applied ethics has never come up, so it could come up. Kantian deontology, though, is my prediction for the essay. With that being said, if you're watching to the end and you've still got questions, let me know in the comments. With that being said, thank you for watching.